With 19 games left, the Chicago Bulls' play-in fate is all but sealed. We're going to talk a little bit about that and the one team that probably has the best chance to pass and get into that play-in if it's not the Chicago Bulls. We're going to talk about that. And one player that I love for the Chicago Bulls if they do draft between 8 and 10, and that's Asa Newell. We'll get into all that plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And I want to start off talking about something that it seems like everybody is finally starting to come to the realization on, and that is that the Chicago Bulls are going to be in the play-in tournament. It just is what it is, right? I think when you look at everything and how things are shaking out for the Chicago Bulls team, like I said, once the Bulls won 4 games in a calendar month in 30 days, and they did not move either up or down in the standings, that all but solidified the fact that the Bulls are probably going to be locked into the 10th seed. The teams below the Chicago Bulls are just going to be winning at too high of a rate. Losing at too high of a rate for the Chicago Bulls to realistically pass those teams up. It's just not going to happen. And so, because of that, I understand that teams are frustrated by that. Fans are frustrated by that and whatnot. But that's just the reality of the situation is, man. This Bulls team is competing. The players and the coaches are not going to try to tank, despite what some Bulls fans would like to hear come from that team. And it just ultimately comes down to the fact that, like, the Bulls, for them to be where everybody seemingly wants them, and that's in the bottom 5 of this draft, they would have had to, like I said, not had Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic to start the season. They would have had to trade a lot of players before the season even started if they really wanted to be in that race, based on how the race has gone for the teams around it. Like, yeah, you got a lot of teams that are competing in the race for the flag. The Bulls were never going to be that low, so it's going to come down again. And as I've said, you can go back. I've been saying this literally since about December, is that it's going to take lottery luck for the Chicago Bulls. That's just the reality of the situation. It's going to take the Bulls to get lucky in the lottery. Now, I coming into this season, right, and this is one thing, I think so many people were focused on the Bulls' record being bad because our pick was top 10 protected to the Spurs. And then since we've gotten that pick back, that mindset just hasn't caught up because that's where people were at the majority of the season, right? That's Bulls content creators, that's Bulls fans, hell, that's everybody, right? And, the Bulls always had to stay in the top 10, because of that pick being owed to the Spurs. Once we got that pick back, that removed, I tell you, and I don't even know if Billy Donovan would have even coached to keep the pick then. He said it like nobody told him to do so, right? But that removed any, I struggle to use the word responsibility, but that removed any desire from this front office to not see these young players go out there and compete. And that is still the best thing for this team. For the future of this team, you do not want to build losing mindsets. You do not want to have young players that are developing that are not out there trying to compete and win every game, right? And like I said before, they're going to lose most of these games anyway. We got 19 games left. I'd be surprised if the Bulls win 4 or 5 of these games, right? They're going to lose more games tonight. Yes, we have the 20th hardest schedule in the league, right? That's not hard. It's not really easy either, right? Especially for the Chicago Bulls. You got a lot of matchups against playoff teams over that time period. It is what it is there. But, like, it's just, the thing is that the season is going to go the route that the season goes. Now, the benefit of that is that this is an extremely deep draft where you can get players later in this draft, still in the lottery, right? The Bulls are still going to be in the lottery unless by some strange stretch of, I don't even know if you call it luck or conspiracy, that the Bulls somehow come out of the play-in and make the playoffs, then we're talking about a whole completely different story, right? And that is one of the things that the pro tankers also have in a case like this, is say, we don't want the chance that the Bulls are going to make it into the playoffs, which I can understand that part of it, right? I'm not too worried about it there, but, we'll see what's going to happen. The Bulls are going to lose the majority of these games. There's just no way around it. They are going to lose the majority of these games. So, because of that, and even if they did win, like I said, the teams below them are losing. Like, the Bulls aren't going to go outside the play-in range, right? So the fact that the Bulls, with 19 games left, their fate is almost all but sealed. At this point, enjoy the ride, right? Enjoy seeing players like Matas Buzelis get over 20 minutes. Enjoy seeing a player like Josh Giddey figure it out and go from a player that was on a hot streak by many Bulls fans' estimations to now a player that isn't shooting as hot and still figuring it out. And for the Bulls fans also, the ones that say, oh, these stats mean nothing because the Bulls traded their best players. Okay, that's stupid. You want me to tell you why that's stupid, right? I get it. You do have players that put up empty stats on bad teams, right? That is a thing that happens, right? Jordan Poole has done that before, right? But when you actually watch these games, you see that, and here's the counterbalance that I'm going to put to that. There's no Zach LaVine on this team. There's no Nikola Vucevic on that team. You know what that means? Other teams' best defenders are guarding who? Kobe White, Josh Giddey, right? We saw Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero switched onto Josh Giddey against the Orlando Magic because he was killing them, right? Even without his shot falling at a high rate. So I get it where people say, well, players put up meaningless points on bad teams, but when you have young players that you already know need to grow, nobody's sitting here making the case that Josh Giddey's all of a sudden going to be some 20-point-per-game scorer the rest of his career. If they're making that, they're too caught up in their standship. But when you look at the process, right, and that's the thing that most people don't, because, again, critical thinking is at such a low for so many people nowadays. I read a thing today that says Zillennials or whatever, they drink less alcohol than the older generations, but that's because they're on perks and they're dumb. Like they're frying their brains with perks. Leave the perks and fentanyl alone, y'all stupid. But anyway, without that being said, right, is that when you watch, it's about the process, right? And I said that earlier into the season. It's not about wins or losses. It's about the process that you're going through. So seeing Josh Giddey, for example, understand, hey, my shot's not falling. Let me draw fouls. I'm bigger than most point guards. That's not going to go away because of the team getting better, right? If the Bulls get a better, for your logic, if the Bulls get a better player than Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis, which you hope that they're going to do, right? No knock on them. You just hope that you're going to continually get better and better players to get to that superstar, right? That means that the better defenders in the league are going to have to guard that other player, which means that Josh Giddey is still going to have a smaller point guard switched on him, which means that the things that he's learning right now, while maybe not doing it at the same volume, meaning that he's not scoring 19 points, maybe he does go down to 14 points, but he's understanding the process that's going to be needed there when the Bulls are better, right? It's not that hard of a concept to grasp. Yes, the Bulls are losing a lot of games. Matas Buzelis is growing because why? He's a player that this is his first year in the NBA. He's drawing defensive assignments from Paolo Banchero and getting cooked a little bit, but he's going to learn that because guess what? As the Bulls get better, the job, if they get a better star around him, that's going to make the job easier on these guys, and they're not going to get the best defensive assignment. It ain't rocket fucking science, y'all. This is very simple things here, right? So let's get it together, man. And again, this is a very small but vocal community that I'm speaking to right now. Most Bulls fans that are level-headed understand what this is, right? They understand because they've been here before. They've watched basketball before. They understand what this is. Now, into the draft, we'll talk about that as we get closer to it, right? And the Bulls are going to have some luck either way, but the more important thing than hoping for lottery luck is scouting correctly. It's doing your due diligence in scouting and trusting your scouting department, and that's the part, regardless of where they pick, that I have my doubts about AK and Eversley at. If the Bulls pick, I can't say number one, maybe even that top three, because it's pretty straightforward there, right? But the higher that the Bulls pick, the more options that they have to look at, and for them, the greater chance they have to get it wrong, right? So my faith in AK, my lack of faith in AK and Eversley doesn't get fixed by the Bulls having more lottery balls. It just doesn't get fixed that way because they got to be better at their scouting and their evaluation, right? That's the thing that I'll look at it for. We'll see what the future does hold. But I've been talking about players kind of that we could look at, right? I talked about, hey, if the Bulls find themselves in the top five, right, a player that I think should go after the main three right there, maybe even above VJ Edgecombe was Trey Johnson. I'm going to talk about a player now that the Bulls fall between 8 and 12-ish. This is a player that a lot of mocks have going around that area, and that's Asa Newell. Now, this will not be something new. If you guys have been following me for a while, you guys know I've been talking about Asa Newell for a while. And here's the thing. Asa Newell has he's like a perfect mix between Nikola Vucevic and Walker Kessler with way more athleticism. And he can play center at the next level. He can end up being a power forward. 6'10", 220. He has the chance to really do either depending on how his body fills out. But I tell you what, if you can get me, even if he ends up being a power forward, If you get me a front line of Matas Buzelis who can play small forward, I think he's not going to put on the weight to be to where it's negative for him to be a small forward. If you can get me Asa Newell and Matas Buzelis as your 3 and your 4 of the future, even if Asa Newell ends up turning into that 5, this is a guy that I think makes so much. He's a left-handed prospect, so there's that. He has great length. He's coordinated. He understands how to go pacing. He's all heart, right? And also, despite him being kind of slighter of frame, especially if you're looking at him as a center, the strength that he has is ridiculous. You pair that with the speed and the athleticism that he has, this is a guy that I implore everybody to go out and look. He's also showing some ability to develop that three-point shot. We'll see if that happens at the NBA level. I will not be surprised if he does end up being a player that, again, I don't want the three-pointer to necessarily be a huge part of his game, but him to be able to hit the open three-pointer, I think could be really big for him as well. Fast, agile, ability to block shots as well. You look at Asa Newell, you put him and Matas Buzelis on that front line, I tell you what, that could be dangerous, whether it's the 4-5 that they end up being or the 3-4 that they end up being together. I really like the prospect of adding Asa Newell to this Chicago Bulls team. He came into the season one of my favorite prospects to watch, and it has done nothing but gotten better over the course of this NCAA season for him. 1 block, 1 steal per game. This dude is also engaged defensively and offensively. And I tell you what, you got a point guard like Josh Giddey that can get him some oops. Man, that's going to be dangerous. You should watch your neck having Asa Newell and Matas Buzelis there in front of you. That's my thought process. Just another prospect that I wanted to bring up. We'll be trickling in little prospect names here and there between now and at me actually starting my draft process analysis. But look out for Asa Newell. Asa Newell is a guy that I feel like you pair him with Matas Buzelis. You still got Josh Giddey here. You probably still have Kobe White here then for at least another year if they don't look to re-sign him. Then you add in as well having Lonzo Ball coming off the bench that can get them the ball. You add in Ayo Dosunmu, who's amazing in transition. I tell you what, the new style that the Bulls are playing, that I love that. Now, the one thing, his rebounding numbers, only 6.5 rebounds per game so far in college. College rebounding is a little bit different. You have to kind of look at the team rebounding aspect if you want to kind of look at that. And Georgia's a team that really does rebound as a team. I do think those rebounding numbers can be much higher for him at the next level. You look at Georgia, for example, they have 4 players averaging over 4 rebounds per game and another one that's averaging 3.8. They truly do rebound as a team, and I think that's the part in it that you have to look at. But Asa Newell, the rebounding rate is really good for him, and I like him. I love him as a prospect at the next level for the Chicago Bulls. You guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Now, the Bulls do have a game tonight. This one is up against the Miami Heat on the road, and this could be a matchup that we end up facing in the play-in tournament. And, it seems like it's always going to end up us and the Miami Heat somehow in the play-in tournament. Business stays the same. Bulls got to take care of goddamn business. That just is what it is, right? You come in here, you play with energy, you execute as a team, you play with that heart and grit. This Heat team has kind of been up and down, right? Especially since the trade deadline. They've had moments of looking like, Wiggins is going to really help this team. But then they've had moments of being so-so. You look at them over the last 10 games. 13th in net rating overall, 16th in offensive rating, 13th in defensive rating. So right in the middle of the pack of both places. They're an efficient team. 10th in true shooting percentage, 10th in effective field goal shooting percentage, and 8th in assist percentage. They share the ball around. They get things done. Now, they have a record of 4-6 over that last 10. So you got to be prepared for them and how they're going to come into this game. But I think that the Bulls can win this game. You guys know I don't predict wins and losses. I don't even know if it matters at this point. But this is one of those games where I would not be surprised if this turns into another game that down the stretch, who makes the right plays and adjustments ends up being who wins this game. The Miami Heat are trying to right their ship. The Chicago Bulls are out there playing with heart and hustle, right? And so that's going to determine how this next thing kind of goes for both these teams, and we'll keep an eye out for it. But with that said, it is Saturday, so that means it is mailbag day. Let's go ahead and get into these voicemails. We got 4 of them. The first one, this one's from the 779.
Hey, is there some way to know if my phone sounds like crap on these voicemails? Because, I didn't mean to leave you something that you couldn't hear. I didn't know my phone sounded that bad. I was just complaining about how slow some of those people were talking. You want to look at the Bulls last 4 years? Okay, they went from last in three-point attempts to last in three-point attempts to 26th last year, and now they're second this year. They're playing the game the right way. Josh Giddey, big, good instincts. I like watching him play. Selfless brand of basketball. You mentioned all the assists that they're getting. This is the right way to win in the NBA. There's something called variance. When you're shooting all these threes, they could beat anybody at any time playing like this. I know they have less talent, but Billy Donovan is putting them in a way that they can win. And if you're not seeing that, then you're just not watching the NBA, man. That's how you win, is you just outshoot your opponent on threes, especially. Peace and love, guys. I hope you can hear this one.
Here's the thing. You're right that Josh Giddey does play a completely unselfish brand of basketball, and that does impact the team, especially when he's allowed to actually run the offense a little bit more. He doesn't at times because, of course, he's playing with Trey Jones or Lonzo or Kobe, and these are other guards that need the ball in their hands. But I think when you look at how he's maximizing those opportunities, running the offense from start to finish, you just see how he's getting everybody engaged. And you pair that with the big like Zach Collins that benefits from that, even Jalen Smith to a degree, and you see how Josh Giddey's really opening the court for his players. So I do agree with that. Now, I don't know if I can agree with the fact that that Billy Donovan has them playing completely the right way, because some of the defensive lapses there, the lack of assignments on there, still having players stand in the corner offensively rather than running off-ball actions as frequently as we need to. It has gotten better, but those are little things that I'm still looking at with Billy Donovan's coaching that can get a little bit better, right? But Billy is who he is at this point. I don't really expect Billy to change much. Shout out to Billy, though, for actually changing his system. If you look at how the Bulls were playing basketball last year, to even how they did it coming into this season, and how now they're doing it with the change of personnel, you can't deny that things have changed. And it may just be because of the execution of the personnel, but things have absolutely changed, and he's opened it up, right? Now, I will say this. You said that's how teams win. If you look at the top teams, even the teams that have high three-point shooting volumes, they also have good defenses. So that's something that you also have to look at as well. It's not, as much as people try to make it seem like defense isn't important in this league anymore, it's just not correct. When you look at some of the teams with the best defensive rating in the league, like, you have to be, if you really want to be, and we know that the Bulls aren't trying to be this great team right now. They're not going to be a great team right now. We know that, right? And that's just who it is. But I think that for you to be a really good team and to play the right way, so to say, right? We're talking about playing the right way. You have to also be a good defensive team. You look at some of the top teams in the league. Thunder, second best record in the league. The number one defensive rating in the entire league. The Rockets, number 3 in defensive rating. The Clippers, number 4 in defensive rating. The Boston Celtics, another team that shoots a high volume of threes, the 5th best defensive rating in the league. The Cavs, the 7th best. So you got to be top 10 in both, right? And that's just where you see the teams that have the most legitimate chance to be really contenders in this league, which I know the Bulls are far off of. You also have to be efficient defensively. That's just where the league's going. People who try to say, like, defense doesn't matter in the league anymore, I think you actually need to watch what these teams do and not just look at the box scores. Yeah, some of the box scores are crazy, but those teams that really, really have a chance to be great also know how to ratchet it up defensively as well. And I think that's what you got to look at also. But great voicemail. Thank you for leaving that. Let's get into the next one, man. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald. I just heard about Kyrie Irving's injury, and no one really knows how long he's going to be out. But there might be a chance, a slim chance, that Portland Trail Blazers fall out first lottery pick. And if they can finish, like, if they can win at least one playoff game or play-in game, they might actually lose their first-round pick to the Bulls, giving the Bulls the probably 8th and 15th pick in the draft. I never even considered the Portland pick being a possibility, considering how terrible, well, not terrible, but how tough the West was and how terrible the Bulls' luck is. But if the Bulls end up with the 8th and 15th pick and they make a move, do you see, like, what 2 players would you think would be available at the 8th and 15th pick? Or do you believe in possibly taking both picks to get a little bit lower? Well, let's be honest. Someone's going to trade more than 8. The top 6 picks are going to be face of the franchise type. But my question to you is, who is on your wish list at number 15? For me, at number 8, it's going to be Moss or Queen, or came in the team. I don't know. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Monk's name right. But at the 15th pick, like, do you go position or do you go best player available? And lastly, which player do you think might fall out of wherever spot you expected them to be drafted at? Because while the top 4 or 5 guys are, rock solid, who do you think should be a top 10 pick might drop out of a lot of these spots? Thanks.
Okay, so Portland would have to make the actual playoffs, not the play-in. Portland making the play-in doesn't do anything for the Bulls getting their pick because if they don't make it out the play-in, they're still a lottery team. The pick has to be outside the lottery, meaning that the only way they're not in the lottery is if they make the actual playoffs. So even if Portland does sneak in there and somehow makes it into the play-in, I don't see them making out the play-in, right? So right now they are 4.5 games back of the Dallas Mavericks, who did lose Kyrie Irving. We don't know what's going on with AD. They have a bunch of players injured. We'll see what happens with the future there. I think also they're incentivized because they have their own first-round pick to come out of that play-in. But even if the Portland Trailblazers do, I think the Phoenix Suns would be the team you're looking out for there. But if the Portland Trailblazers do make it into the play-in, the Bulls aren't going to get that pick just because they make it into the play-in, Reggie. So that's one thing that you have to look at there as well. Now, as far as who would I draft at number 15 if somehow the Bulls did get Portland's pick, I look at Danny Wolf. I think that's around the area right now. Danny Wolf's projected to go in. Of course, in the draft combine, he could take that a bit further. We've seen players like him rise in the draft combine when people start realizing they're a little bit more skilled than just being big, old-school centers. But I also think that Igor Dimon and also Jeremiah Fears could drop just because of position. I think depending on where the team's pick order is, some of those teams don't need a point guard. And thus, it could lead to Igor Dimon or Jeremiah Fears falling down that draft board and being there, right outside the lottery. So we'll see how that goes. And if they do, those teams have a chance to get a hell of a talent. That's why getting extra first-round picks in this draft is so important, right? The teams that have multiple picks in this draft, they have a chance to really walk away with some really talented players. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail, man. This one's from Jock.
Hey, this is Jock Wilco. Now, I just got done watching you live, and I was telling you how the Bulls haven't drafted an all-star since D. Rose. You called me a liar. And you went off to say that Jimmy Butler was an all-star. Now, Jimmy Butler was an all-star. He just wasn't an all-star with the Bulls. We didn't send Jimmy Butler to the all-star team. There's been multiple players that the Bulls have sent to the all-star game. I'm just saying we haven't drafted them. Now, can you elaborate on you telling me that Jimmy Butler was an all-star like we sent him to the all-star? He probably went into a different team. Don't get me wrong, I haven't did my research, but probably saying he went to a different team and then they sent him to the all-star game. I'm just saying the Bulls have a problem with drafting and developing talent. Like Larry Markin. I mean, I can go on for days about who we didn't draft it and went and let go. And they went on to be all-star or being a better player than with the Bulls. So, I mean, on your next show, I'll be looking forward to hearing your feedback on it. And I see red. Let's go Bulls. Bulls Nation.
All right, so this is what I love when people call in and they're so certain about things. Hey, brother, go and check when Jimmy Butler was an all-star. He made the all-star team twice as a Chicago Bull. Once he made it, he had to get replaced via injury, and the other time he made it as a starter in 2016 and 17, or 17 and 18 was one of those two times. But he was he was an all-star twice as a Chicago Bull. He actually replaced Paul Gasol, who was his teammate as a Chicago Bull at that time. Don't check me on my Bulls history, my boy. I know that. Now, as far as the development issue, that's there. I don't think any Bulls fan is going to argue with you that the Bulls have had problems with development, and that transcends even this front office, right? Now, let's see if they start getting it right. And I think even that problem with development, you look at Ayo and what he was last year. Now, I know this year took a bit of a downturn, right, because of the injuries that he was dealing with off and on. Apparently, he had it for a lot longer. But even then, Ayo still pulled up really good numbers when he was actually playing and when he was in the starting lineup. So we developed Ayo. You can't say that we didn't. Pat may just not have been that good. Marko Simonovic just wasn't good. He's not in the NBA anymore, right? Dalen and Julian, they are a byproduct of lack of opportunities, I think, because I do think both those guys have a little bit more skill than what we've seen. Still can't say what level that skill is, but I think you're seeing Matas develop right in front of our eyes, right? So it's been a mixed bag, and I think having Peter Patton in the development department is going to be the thing that matters the most with that, and we'll see what the future does hold. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? You know who it is. It's your boy Shay. Look, man, I've been looking at the standings, and we could possibly face Atlanta, or we could possibly face the Orlando Magic if we make it out the play-in, if we make it into the play-in. I'm here to ask you, who would you rather face first in the first game, Atlanta or the Orlando Magic? Don't get me wrong, Orlando has great defense, and they probably could give us a run for our money, but I feel like they don't really have consistent scoring, and that sometimes it could hurt. You know what I'm saying? And it could be a dogfight, especially since the Bulls have found this new edge of where they're starting to play defense at a decent rate. So good defense versus good defense, it could be a dogfight, but I feel like our offense could be a little bit too quick for them at times due to the fact that they play a much slower pace. You know what I'm saying? Atlanta, we got to worry about Trae Young, and we got to worry about, you know what I'm saying, and we got to also worry about, maybe not Clint Capella if Zach Collins go up against him, because unless Trae Young is feeding him the ball, like, we don't necessarily worry about him, but maybe on the rebounder side. And outside of Trae Young, who else do they have to score? Anyway, the point of this call is, who would you rather face in the very first game? The Atlanta Hawks or the Orlando Magic in the first play-in game? Because I know we probably going to face Miami and maybe lose, who knows. But I'm here to ask you, who would you rather face first? Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
All right, I know the Magic have been struggling, right? And we just beat them, for a matter of fact. But I still would like the Hawks matchup better, because I just think that we match up better with the Hawks. We always play a close game, but we really own those matchups with the Hawks more times than not. I think we've won like 5 out of like last 6 or 7 games against them. Somebody fact check me on that one. So we actually have a pretty good record against them. Now, Ayo's not playing. We know that he is the Trae Young killer, right? So, that's a part in it as well. But, we'll see what the future holds. But if I had to pick between those two teams, I'd probably say the Atlanta Hawks, because I get it that the Magic are struggling, but I just would trust Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner eventually to figure that thing out. And that team's so good defensively that it can be really dangerous as well, right? So that's the way that I view it. Not saying everybody needs to view it that way, but that's kind of how I look at it. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Who would you rather the Bulls face in the play-in tournament, the Orlando Magic or the Atlanta Hawks? Let me know all that down below. That's my time for today, at least for now. I'll be back here for the pregame, halftime, and postgame shows. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.